Hi, everybody. My name is Julia Pickar, and I come from the world of public radio. I promise this is not going to turn into a pledge drive. I work at Oregon Public Broadcasting in Portland, Oregon, and I'm a contributor to NPR and Marketplace. And I've become very obsessed with the future of mobility, and I've been coming to these conferences. So today we have a panel that is providing vehicles to gig workers, financial services, data, mentorship, and other opportunities. And so I'd like to have the panel go ahead and introduce yourself. I want to start with Brent.
Yes, I am Brent Burnett with Ridepro team. I'm super excited to be here today to introduce the team principles where we're, as you said, providing mentorship and opportunities for, in this particular instance, to help drivers and riders tap their true potential. But we are a membership program.
Hi everybody, my name is Desmond. I'm data science manager at Lyft. I specifically work on the driver experience team, and so my team owns the tools and features and programs that we put driver facing in order to help them maximize their time on the road.
How's it going? My name is Dahlmann. I'm the COO and co-founder of GetScale. We help onboard and recruit new drivers for organizations like Lyft through one-on-one conversations. So our team over the past 8 years has had about 11 million unique one-on-one conversations and have learned a lot about the shifting landscape, needs, wants, desires of the gig worker, and happy to share some of that perspective today.
And I'm Jay Millard. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Ualett, and we're a bilingual financial solution for independent workers. We fill a need or a space for a group of customers that are often underbanked, underserved, and how do we connect them to access to keep those businesses moving?
Shamus Hayes, Chief Operating Officer of Rideshare Carz. We're a full-service rental company for rideshare and gig workers. More than just the keys to the vehicle, we provide resources, education, safety, and a driver community to those that are looking for rental vehicles.
Okay, so I'm not going to go in order of the chairs here. I'm going to start with Jay. That's how I organize myself here. So you describe gig workers as underbanked and underserved. Can you describe how drivers are underfinanced, and what doors does credit open up for gig workers?
I appreciate the question. The reality is, I think sometimes if you were to ask a gig worker, it's as much about sort of when you think about trust, and there's a trust relationship between the financial industry, there's a trust relationship from the gig worker, and a lot of that trust, sort of where it breaks down, I think, is around being misunderstood. And if you think about what does it mean to be a gig worker, it's like, do you understand who I am and the fluctuations in my earnings, the patterns in which I earn a living? The fact that the traditional credit models tend not to represent an accurate prediction of what your ability is to make whole your obligations. And so I think a solution needs to be more nimble, more API, fintech forward, all those kinds of things. But at the end, it needs to solve a real problem for a misunderstood customer. And I'll add one more layer of that misunderstanding, which is, in many cases, it's in my language. There are a lot of folks that are Spanish speaking, for example, that oftentimes those complex tools are not presented in their native language.
Okay. Maybe can you just drill down to like an example of a type of gig worker that is, could advance their career through credit?
Okay, so I think there's a couple of different places we think about, whether it's a solopreneur, a small business, or a true independent worker, a 1099 worker. And a couple of examples that these are often cited where we'll read, some of the testimonials the client will post, and they're very sort of almost very emotional. I mean, during COVID, we had a restaurant owner who had a piece of machinery breakdown that literally without it, they weren't going to be able to continue running their business, which was shifting, by the way, to more delivery during that period of time. And oddly, the scenarios that were happening were their cash flows were picking up, but their ability to sort of demonstrate under the traditional models, they weren't going to get any credit. So we were immediately able to solve that. We were immediately able to get this company the very surgical need met right then. I think we also see the very common example of, we had an example of somebody who had their catalytic converter stolen from underneath their vehicle. And it's like, we can relate to that because unfortunately it happened too often. And somebody suddenly, like, I can't drive, and I don't have any way to get my vehicle back on the road. So story after story like that, and it's immediate, and it's something that you need right now because this is my source of income, but the traditional models just aren't working for these customers.
Okay. I want to move on to Dennis, GetScale. Are ride-hail companies struggling to recruit drivers right now?
It's very seasonal and very labor market dependent, and then it's very regional. So the answer is like sometimes in some places. I would say if you look back over the past 2 or 3 years, and really this is across any labor market, so whether you're trying to hire an engineer or a fleet of drivers or couriers, it was really hard coming out of the pandemic. We're kind of into a labor market today where it's a little bit easier to recruit, and more of that power has gone to the sort of either the employer or the runner of the workforce, depending on the organization. So I'd say it's much easier today from an organizational standpoint, just given the dynamics of there are more people who are more uncertain about their income, and the gig economy is one of the easiest and fastest ways to convert time into money. And so we've seen a larger influx of people going on their own volition, and then also sticking around for longer with, just speaking broadly about the industry. So now easier than before. You're always going to see some regional variances, but that's kind of the story of today as we see it.
So what are some of the most surefire ways to recruit new drivers?
I think the number one thing, if you talk to a worker, pretty much again in any job, but looking at the gig economy, is like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is going to be pay. Somewhere down the list, as you go to 7, 8, 9, 10, there's things about experience and there's things about flexibility. But if you have a good offering for them to turn time into money that works well in their market and they have the resources and tools to take advantage of, that's what's going to do it. I think within that and differentiating yourself amongst different opportunities, it's how do you help someone get started? And if you think about all of the jobs that you all work, at a desk job, when you show up on your first day, someone probably sits down with you and walks you through what your first responsibilities are. There's maybe a 90-day plan, you're figuring those kinds of things out, and like you have a buddy at work. When you get started on an app, we've made the onboarding flow incredibly easy, but unless you have a friend or someone who referred you who's done this before, it's really scary. I've gone through and done just about every app platform that you can imagine. And we had talked to thousands and thousands of drivers as a business. When I did my first trip with Lyft, I was like, I'm a little bit nervous, even though I've helped walk people through the same thing. And so having that voice or that ability to talk to someone and onboard makes a really big difference, especially when you're in a world, you're like, I don't have that buddy, or I don't have that person. So the human touch still makes a difference when you're doing something new.
Shamus, what's your take on the difficulty of recruiting drivers, given from the car rental?
It can be very challenging because there's also a lot of different drivers that are out there based on the hours that they're looking to work. So recruiting can be challenging for us on the rental side. There's a certain type of driver that is going to rent, and that's geared more towards that full-time driver, someone that's looking at doing it, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, throughout sometimes 8 to 10 hours a day, because they need to be able to accommodate for paying for the rental as well as accommodate for the other bills and finances that they have to make it make sense. So driver recruitment is very important. There's a lot of different ways that we use to recruit drivers. One of them is providing a quality vehicle, a newer vehicle. It's a challenge to obtain a vehicle for these drivers. Traditional income at dealerships where they go and try to buy a car is not necessarily supported because Uber income may not qualify, Lyft income may not qualify. It goes back to your seasonal comment, it's not steady. So they'll come and they'll look for another opportunity, and we want to be there to provide that.
Okay. Moving on to driver earnings, I want to talk to Desmond from Lyft. What's Lyft doing right now that's meaningfully addressing, trying to increase driver earnings?
Yeah, so my team focuses a lot on thinking about driver productivity because obviously the more utilized a driver is, the more they earn on the platform. Very specifically, we work on features in the app to increase transparency about the marketplace. We know that as drivers have more information about the marketplace, they're going to be more effective. One example is we put a lot of signals in the app on the map specifically. So drivers can see historically where a recent ride demand was. They can also see in real time where nearby drivers are. And using those data points, they're able to create their own strategies in order to figure out where's the best place for me to go right now. We've also recently launched an AI earnings assistant tool, so that allows drivers to, as Dennis said, like rideshare can get very complicated as a driver. It's a busy marketplace. There's a lot of different signals that they're dealing with, and as a new driver, it can be very, very overwhelming to figure out what the right thing to do is. So the AI tool that we've built is to help drivers synthesize that information, let them input what their personalized constraints are. If I'm only driving Monday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., that's taken in, and then we can make recommendations and a schedule and a plan for them to help them maximize their earnings and utilization.
Okay. This morning on my way here, I looked at the gas prices at a local. It was $8.29 for the regular gallon. I was pretty shocked. And so how can a company like Lyft meaningfully help drivers navigate times like that, times like this?
Yeah, I'm gonna be frank, like rising gas costs are obviously affecting everybody here, but especially drivers. As I said, we focus a lot on productivity tools, but the other thing that my team does own is the Lyft Rewards program. And so that program is a program aiming to help drivers earn more through shop points, as well as reduce their costs and increase their take-home pay. So we've got a lot of perks, such as gas cashback partnerships with Upside that help them get discounts at the gas pump. Drivers also earn points on every dollar that they earn, and they're able to redeem that on either cash, or they can get better value on car washes, oil changes, and other very relevant expenses for them. And so really we think about how do we make the cost of driving cheaper for them. Yeah.
Okay. And everyone else can also jump in if you have thoughts about how you're helping your customers, the drivers, navigate times like this. It must affect them on a day-to-day basis. If anyone else wants to comment on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
When somebody becomes a team member, they have an opportunity in their business to work together, to have a mentor and a mentee, to discover how to use those very tools. When you have millions and millions of people, it's very challenging to organize the marketplace and discover those tools and to unlock the potential of that tool, which is one of the reasons why the team platform was created, because I've done thousands and thousands and thousands of rides, and I've talked to people, and it didn't take one moment where one lady shared to me, I was driving in Arizona. I did 2 rides, and I couldn't figure out how to use the tools and get to where I needed to go in the proper time, and after that, I got 1 star, and I was off the platform. That's not a good experience. I don't think that's really what any of us want to have, but that's what happens when things become automated. When you actually have relationships and time factors built into it, which is what we built into the team model and into the compensation structure, we now organize it so these tools that everyone has and brings to the table have purpose and meaning. There's a why behind them. So one of the things in the compensation plan to increase the earnings is we say, hey, all drivers, if they so choose as a team member, can get paid $1 per minute. The rider can turn around and say, I want to pre-purchase my minutes for my ride. And I now have access, if I so choose, to go direct to my driver of choice. People ask me all the time, how do I get you, Brent? I like your vehicle. I like you. You're reliable. You bring relationship back to it. And it doesn't matter if they're young or old. Now the question is how does that expand and grow so people can understand your tools and everything that we're talking about up here? It now becomes a word of mouth based upon experience. We all love the tools. We love the industry. But is it treating us fair? Are we organizing and sharing it and bringing back that relationship of trust? Which is what I've discovered is every single one I've talked to up here wants to bring back purpose and meaning behind these experiences. And that's what team building does.
So it sounds like a little bit of a different business model to the one that were the Uber and the Lyft model and the others that we're used to, with the sort of the commission coming out of the fares and the dynamic pricing. It sounds like a little bit of a business model. I guess this was one of my lightning round questions towards the end, but I wanted to get your take on, is it time for different business models? I've just become aware of a company called Empower, which is on the East Coast, and they're offering a monthly subscription to their platform, and so they don't take a commission. It's another option. They're having some regulatory issues, but I think just the fundamental idea about different business models, I would like to go around and get some thoughts about that. Maybe, Shamus, do you want to start?
Sure, and one of the pieces to expand on Brent and what he was saying is that there's a driver education piece to this as well, regardless of whether it's the Uber and Lyft model or other models that are out there. They're starting to pop up. They do exist across the country, and we see them coming in consistently. So I do believe that other models popping in will provide additional resources to different people from the customer perspective across the board. But driver education, going back to the gas prices conversation, because I think it's a real key piece here. When changes like this happen in the economy that are outside the control of the drivers, we've got to go to the drivers and provide them education and resources on what they can do. So we have those conversations, those focus groups, and we say to the drivers, regardless of what platform you're on, stop driving around. Wait for that ride. Don't waste that gas driving all around trying to search for that ride, trying to chase the surge. Take a break, go to a location, park yourself there, and protect your gas. Right? Protect your charge. Protect those pieces. I think the driver education is really, really important here, and things like that can help them save money. It can help them drive better, drive smarter. So those are some of the things that we do, is we want to educate the driver as well so they can save that money and not make decisions. Take all of the rides. The $5 ride leads to the $30 ride, leads to the $10 ride, leads to the $50 ride, right? So take those rides and utilize them, because they're going to lead you to more funds, and you'll also be waiting less time likely as well. So those are some of the things that we want to focus on also.
Strategies. Does
And again,
anyone else? Yeah.
And it's regardless of program.
Yeah. I would definitely want to hear more strategies from different perspectives.
You know, I don't know that I have the same take, because obviously folks are focused very specifically on rideshare, but I think there's an element of the gig worker who I look at and I think about the dynamics of their life. And there's almost an opportunity to lean into this. This is a very entrepreneurial bunch, right? And so there's an element of maybe we don't make it easy enough in our models, if you want to talk about it, to have that side hustle, maybe to have the multiple gig scenarios. I mean, when we're detecting one of the things that in a banking solution that doesn't understand this customer, they also don't understand that this gig worker might be working for 3 or 4 different, programs, whether it's in rideshare or delivery or in other aspects of independent work. And so sometimes the solution is right in front of us, but we're not trying to solve it from an individual vendor standpoint. It's more of an ecosystem problem. It's more of a disrupting a little bit more of the, how do we just recognize there's mutual benefit to be gained by, if the fundamental economics are breaking down in a model that sustains us, we got to figure that out, because we all need these solutions from rideshare. But if it's no longer easy to do that, well, let's make that a more, how do we help the entrepreneurialism flourish a little more?
Right.
And so I don't know. I mean, I realize that sounds very aspirational, but I think it's real, because when we'll do a focus group tonight with some of our gig workers, and I know the last one I did, and I feel it's fairly common. It always amazes me how much they're doing, how many different things they're touching, how versatile they are. And that problem space, if we lean into it, is bigger than Uber or Lyft. It's bigger than rideshare. It's more the nature of independent work, and but it helps us solve what is a huge ubiquitous thing, which is rideshare, and it helps us make that more economically viable by maybe allowing you to grow a little more. So I see that what I love coming with these groups and all the folks I meet here is thinking about maybe it's time more partnerships, more more cross-team sort of alignments to solve bigger parts of the problem space, that if we got to go beyond our own independent company to solve that problem, because it's our space.
Yeah. Dennis, did you want to add something about?
Yeah, you talked a little bit about, is it time for a new model?
Yes.
Is it time for a change? And I think one of the most beautiful things in my mind about the gig economy is it's always a new model. It's dynamic, there's supply and demand, and that's kind of like the fundamentals. Like the first time you learned about Uber or Lyft, it was like, when it rains, the price is higher. When it's nice weather or it's the middle of the day, the price is lower. The drivers and the riders experience the same thing. There's other things at play, but it's always dynamic in that sense. And I think there's a couple of things that have developed within that. And as Sergio's over here, he'll tell you all the best things about strategy on how you should be dashing during dinner time, and you should be, driving rideshare in the, when people were going home from the bars or big events or what have you, and like what are all the different peak times so you can do it as an individual. But even within the models, if you look at Uber and Lyft, there's organizations like Alto that are behind the scenes as fleets, where if you're like, I don't have the stomach to be a solopreneur driver, I want an hourly wage, but driving is for me, there are organizations that have been built into the ecosystem that you're not seeing every day behind the scenes. So there are drivers that are, dealing with different models, using the same vocation, and it's sort of just about where's your market, what opportunities are available to you. But it's been cool to see the behind the scenes entrepreneurship, and it's like, obviously there's a lot of different apps and things, but it's not just Uber and Lyft anymore. There's so many sub layers. Even if that's the interface with which you get the rides, that's not necessarily the interface with which the drivers are working.
Yeah. Desmond, there's a room for new models.
I think the one thing I'll say is that we do have a very diverse driver base, and so what model might work for one may not work for others. Thanks. And so, the commission, obviously, the way our business is structured is what's worked for a long time. And we're constantly exploring, different ways to pay drivers. For example, we have turbo zones, and we've recently introduced a flash turbo, which are bonuses that stack, and flash turbo is more aligned to when demand occurs. And so these are ways for drivers to get paid differently, right, or paid more. And ultimately, if drivers earn more, we as a company earn more, and so we're always evolving our policies and exploring different features to help drivers maximize their earnings.
Okay. So, Brent, your business is helping drivers get repeat customers and sort of build their own customer base. We talked a little bit earlier today that my 80-year-old parents would love to have their own private driver that they could call upon. So are you building your platform alongside the existing traditional ride-hail companies, or are you working with them? And what universe are you working with them, and in what universe are you working
The Ridepro
side by
team
side? Yeah.
platform, that's a great question, Julia, is 100% working with all of its team members, which would be all companies and all individuals that believe in team building. It is exactly what Shamus have been talking about. How do we bring relationship and trust and organize and reconnect in a meaningful way? It is truly a multi-industry partner platform. And that's very important. Everyone's why is just a little bit different. Our tools may be a little bit different. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're saying bring your tools in and allow people to have mentors and mentees and work together as a team. So together, everyone can achieve more and feel like they're being seen and heard and validated. They don't need to fear what's coming next. They can look forward to what's coming next. I would encourage everyone in here to share it and get pre-enrolled. This is our developer launch. We have 4 co-founders. We have many developers that are programming tools that we haven't even talked about that team members can have in order to achieve their why, their success, and their business. Because all of our whys are just a little bit different in how we use these. But with this membership opportunity, you now get the options to choose to get educated and discover who you are and who you want to be. It is truly has some principles. And one of my favorites is Dr. Covey that really talks about finding our why. And most people know Dr. Covey by his 7 habits of highly effective people. The real question is, do they know the 8th habit, which is finding success and going to greatness. This is what's needed in our marketplace as business owners, as individuals, so we can better share it, understand it. Because you're creating great tools. You're just describing all the very things, but now we need to organize it, come together, do what Jay said, learn how to partner, be more effective. That way we can understand what people truly want. And as I've worked with Shamus and Jay and all these guys and talked about, it's like, they have experience. We've been out there, we've been driving, we understand what's going on. Now the question is how can we bring it to market? Now it's an area of execution. Can we truly help your parents, Julia, get what they want in the end?
Yeah. Thank you. So I am going to move into our lightning round. I just have a couple questions I want everybody to answer. And then I think there'll maybe be a few minutes for some questions from the audience, if anyone, for our panelists. So I am going to start with Shamus. And if you could all just answer this question. What is the single biggest friction point for drivers today? Or the public radio way to ask that is, what keeps drivers up at night?
I think the quality of the vehicle they have access to is a key point. Drivers are resilient. Drivers know that there are multiple platforms out there. Drivers know and expect there are different ways for them to earn at different times in the day. They need a quality vehicle to be able to earn their income. That's what keeps them on the road. So providing a quality vehicle for them, getting them behind the wheel and being a partner behind the wheel with them, I think that helps ease that tension for them. But in today's world, they need a good quality vehicle to be successful.
And related, but I'll go directly to sort of a core need, which is financial stability. And I think about, the vast majority of folks that are living, in this case, whether you want to call it paycheck to paycheck, but week to week, right? And you think about predictability, and a lot of things is just about understanding and feeling, some basic safety needs. And I think we think of this from my side, on the financial side, it's just sort of a financial well-being and growth journey, and thinking about how to build on a foundation and create some of that security. So obviously these are very interrelated means to an end, but I think at its core, that financial well-being and that ability to sort of protect and preserve your own confidence, your ability to pay your bills is at its core.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. I think the one word in my mind is money. People ask us, you can talk to a ton of drivers, like, what are the unique insights? And it's like, they just want to earn more money, just like most all of us that wake up every day and like, this is their job and that's what they do to go to work. So what keeps them up at night? It's money. To add a little bit of layer of context, it's like, how can I optimize my day and my schedule to do the best for myself as possible? And that's sort of like where the learning and some of the challenges and how you can actually impact that, and not just like, I hope there's a good surge today, but like, what am I going to do to impact it? So where am I going to be? What times am I going to drive? What apps am I going to use? But it's money. It's the number one thing.
Okay.
Dennis actually took my answer. Yeah, I think productivity and just how do I maximize time on the road and make sure that I'm... Must be you. It's got to be me. We tried 2 mics already. Yeah, how do I be intentional about my time on the road in order to take home the most? Right?
Yeah.
The one word I would use is fear. False expectations appearing real. It exists. It's real. And it creates a lot of anxiety. And our goal at Ridepro team is to create mentors that can help people overcome fear through trust, through the tools that all of you are creating up here, so they can have a better car, a better dream, so they can then see the light. And when do the light shine the brightest? In our darkest moments. And if you would ask me or any of the co-founders that are here, they will tell you their experience of what they've been through. And then people start to connect and start to say, oh, you've been there, you've done it, you understand where I've been. And then people start to feel seen, loved, and validated. But fear is the thing that truly paralyzes people.
Okay, I want to end with the final question, which is the autonomous elephant in the room. and I want to go around and ask, basically, how often do you think about autonomous vehicles? And you can give me a percentage of the day, and maybe just a little bit about your feeling about how you serve your gig worker customers, your gig worker audience, and with this kind of looming in the distance.
So when it comes to us, we focus on how we can serve the gig worker the best. And for our business and our model, that's offering a variety of vehicles to the driver. And that's a variety of vehicles, whether it's gas, electric, hybrid, and it's also a variety of vehicles for the platforms that are out there, whether it is the main platform, the executive platform, the comfort platform. There we go. So we want to be able to provide a variety of vehicles for what's on the platform as well. Those are the things that we focus on. Rideshare Carz we're not in the autonomous vehicle business, which is okay. We can coexist in this world together. We offer things that the AV team doesn't offer and vice versa. And we believe right now that that's okay. And we're going to continue to pledge forward to offer the best vehicles, the most variety of vehicles, and the best opportunity from an education and resource perspective that we can.
So you think about AVs 2% of the day, 0%?
I would say I probably think of AVs about 10% of the day.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And 90% I'm not, because I'm up and up, and our drivers ask about it. Our drivers wonder. Our drivers have fear of AVs and the future of AVs. So we do talk to our drivers about it. We do let them know we're still here. We're focused on providing you the quality of vehicle that you deserve and keeping you in this vehicle. You're going to be needed for many, many years. So it is a part of our day, no doubt. But it's not. It's 10% of our day. 90% of our day is focused on other people's, for me.
Well, it's funny. I mean, as I listen, I don't want to say it's as much as it probably is, but it probably is half of the time. And I think it's probably more. But in a good way, I think of it as more, I look at it through the lens of the future is about this hybrid environment. And it's about how does this coexist? And I think about the gig worker, and I think about what is the creative evolution of the worker in the context of this evolution. And there are different needs we have. Some people, I love in the vehicles now with Uber and Lyft, it's like, do you want to talk a lot or do you not want to talk at all? It's like, there will be premium services that emerge. Don't underestimate the gig worker to find the crack in the system that is the need unmet. And so while there's tomorrow's new gig job that nobody knows about, that's the premium service that is a different layer on the problem, I see that as, but I can't deny that it makes us all have to be honest about everything we do is evolving, and it's evolving fast. So I think of it more in the context of my confidence in that harmony and that hybrid relationship, but my awareness that it is a lot, and I have to admit that.
As an individual, I live in Austin. I think they're fucking so cool. It's like the number one most futuristic experience I've ever had in my life. We're in LA at a mobility conference. Most of you have probably been in one, but it's like, whoa, this is the most future, like right there with like your first ChatGPT. So I think it's insanely cool. It is the number one criteria on which I will purchase my next car. If you can buy a Waymo tomorrow, I'm gonna do the overnight shoe drop Nike box camping thing. I think they're awesome. As a business leader who got our start predicated on recruiting drivers, it's pretty scary. And I'm certainly willing to admit that, and we have made adjustments as a business to widen our aperture and do things beyond what we initially started to do, because we know the world's going to change. Some of that will come in recruitment. There's new jobs, like dashers are going and shutting doors on Waymo as things that they can, that's happening today, is you can get a dash that says, go shut the door on that Waymo because, that person forgot to do that. So I try not to think about it all the time, but I think it's important to be strategic with which the times you focus on your strategy as a business and how you're adapting to it. So I think it's not often, but then sometimes 100% of the time.
Desmond.
Yeah, it's definitely on my mind, but I spend most of my time thinking about the impact on drivers of AVs, right? I don't work directly on the AV team, however, I can say that we do believe that the future is a hybrid supply model. I think that there's always going to be room for human drivers, whether it's to fill demand. There's so much demand for ride sharing and only so many EV vehicles on the platform, so there's always going to be a need. And there's also going to be use cases that only human drivers can fill. When you're headed to the airport, you may want a driver to help you with your luggage. There's a connection aspect, the human-to-human connection aspect of ride sharing. We have a really cool story is we have one driver-rider pair. I think they're in Pittsburgh, but they've done over 350 rides together, right? And so there's always a human element. There's going to be use cases where a human driver is going to be filling a need that can't simply be filled by autonomous vehicles. And my team really is thinking about how do we make sure that drivers are still successful in this new world of autonomous vehicles and hybrid supply. And so that's why we focus so much on the tools and the productivity to ensure that drivers continue to get the rides that they want and continue to make a living on our platform.
Autonomous vehicles are interesting, and I've asked many riders about their experiences. Now, in the marketplace that I'm in, they're not there, and they'll probably never be there because the color in our state is orange. It is a construction zone with lots of snow. But the cool thing about autonomous vehicles in a team concept here is you can put an autonomous vehicle in the team, and it just helps everyone in the team. You're not competing against it. You don't have to fear it. But I've had riders that say, hey, I like that experience. I don't have to talk to my driver, for example. They go the speed limit, you know what I mean? And then another one says, well, I kind of do fear it because sometimes they do weird things at certain moments, you know what I mean? And so there's this fear, this false expectation that appears real. But I believe as you organize a marketplace with all these different interests, the common denominator, and you had brought it up, is time, right? How do we value our time and reciprocate it? And if you believe in the law of the harvest and the law of reciprocity and being authentic and real, and you care about relationships, okay? The great read's The Go-Giver, and it talks about the 5 laws of stratospheric success. If you go to read it, you're not going to fear the autonomous vehicle. You're going to say, it has its place. A hybrid model makes sense.
Yeah.
People will then choose and determine what it means to them. So maybe your parents say, I want an autonomous vehicle. I don't like Brent. Okay?
No, they like
Or,
chatting with the driver.
I like Brent. I don't like the vehicle, right? But at least now they get a choice. And we want to respect people's choice and at the same time elevate them, bring what you have, and let's take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And you'll notice that Shamus and Jay, all these guys, they're super smart. They have experience. Now it's about how do we organize it? How do we come together so we can partner in a meaningful way? Bring the marketplace what it deserves.
Thank you. Do we have time for audience questions at all? I think we might have a couple minutes. Does anyone have any question for any of our panelists? Yeah.
I feel like what I've heard a lot of trying to give these drivers more income is productivity, is focus on helping them drive more and just earn more to that. And I feel like with that angle of productivity comes a risk of safety. And as someone who's raised in these cars, I've had drivers who drive very fast or maybe aren't the most safe. And I feel like the pressure is put on the consumer to give them a bad review, but it's hard to do that because I know this is someone's income. And so I'm wondering if there's any exploration of how you use technology, like maybe tracking their phone, seeing how fast they're going to better the safety for both the drivers and the customers while making sure that, still being productive.
I can talk to that a little bit. So some of the technology that we're exploring right now is data that will score the drivers on how well they drive, sharp turning, fast acceleration, harsh braking, things like that, and give that and create a scoring model for those drivers, and that could impact how much they potentially pay for a vehicle or how much they're possibly discounted. A lot of the insurance companies do that right now with just drivers in their own organizations. So we're working on that on the rideshare side, and as a vehicle rental, of course, insurance is extremely expensive. We know that. We want to prevent accidents, so that falls under the safety bucket of what we're working with. And one of our programs, it starts with that. It says, drive safe, earn more. So that is a piece that's very important. We see it, we know it, we've experienced it ourselves, and we want drivers to not feel like they're being watched, not feel like it's a big brother concept of someone is trying to tell me how to drive, but have them be more aware that the passenger in their car wants to feel safe. And if they know that that's going on and they know it can benefit them, we have a greater likelihood for a much safer ride that can occur.
Does anyone else want to?
Sure. As a driver myself, I enjoy driving. I don't discourage people from driving. I always ask people, do you like to talk to people? And if you like to drive, this might be for you. You got to try it out. But if you're going to do it, have a why, have a purpose. With the team building concept, a team member now has another team member and say, you wanted to get me again. You'd say, how do I get Brent? I liked his style. I liked his speed. I liked his car. I liked the experience. You can now message me because you're a team member. You can now have access to my schedule. So if I'm driving Monday through Saturday from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m., you can now look at my schedule and say, hey, can you come take me to the airport? I want you. It changes the equation because it's no longer about an algorithm or a company. It's about how do I discover what you want? How can I provide that service and fulfill it in a meaningful way? You get to choose. And you can say, you know what? I don't want you. Block, you know what I mean? And you just don't do it. And you select a different option. Okay? So in the team environment, it's important to also have a mentor to help people understand how to be professional about who they are and who they can be, which is why I've always advocated and encouraged, like for the rideshare guys, you know, say, hey, be part of the team concept because you share how to do it the right way versus the not so good way, right? But that's true of all of us, right? We're trying to discover how to execute and provide better fulfillment. Everyone has different whys. I've had people, step on it, get me to the airport, I'll pay you another $50. I got 12 minutes to get there, you know what I mean? Everyone has different reasons why they go slow or fast or where they need to get to go. But the key is can I ask the right questions when a guest gets into my car?
Yeah.
And I had somebody get into my car and they asked me, are you this? And I says, yes, I am. I am that. And I says, it sounds like you have something to share with me. And we had a 45-minute ride. And I says, and I just listened to 45 minutes, and it was the most amazing story. So a lot of times I like to share because I love to share things and inspire people. Wow, what he shared with me was mind-blowing, life-altering experiences. I've had a couple
We're
of those.
almost at the end. Did you guys have anything you wanted to add to that question?
I'll say obviously we take safety very seriously. We have a similar driver-facing score called Smooth Cruiser Score, which includes a lot of the signals that Jay was talking about. The challenge is, of course, even making it driver-facing is how do you make drivers care about that, right? How do you make them actually care and drive safer, right? And so the thing my team tries to do is build a connection between riders and drivers on that front, right? Drivers are ultimately here to serve riders, and if you serve riders well, drivers are going to get more rides and they're going to get more tips. And so really just making that apparent and providing those types of insights to drivers is how we make the platform safer. Yeah.
Yeah, the last 10 seconds, I think there's two factors at play. One, vote with your ratings, vote with your tips, and you will create the marketplace that you wish to see. The second is the incentives aren't as misaligned as you think. There's a ridiculous percentage of each ride that goes to insurance, and the organizations like Lyft and Uber that are footing the bill are trying to get that down. So there's tracking a lot of things that go behind the scenes that are trying to make riding safer, and it is actually an economic incentive. So those are forces at play that may not necessarily be, like super obvious to the general consumer.
Okay, great. I think that about wraps up our time. I want to thank all of our panelists. Everyone give them a round of applause.
Thank you, Julie.
Yeah, thanks so much.